Colin Quinn. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 4 pages. That's how long the Constitution is. If you haven't read it, I hope you feel as stupid as I felt last year when I started this show, and I hadn't read it yet. 4 pages. That's the whole thing. That's our whole country based on 4 pages, which is pretty amazing, the Constitution. But the thing is, it worked. Well, it worked, and now this country's about to break up. People see this country as either, the last best hope, hard work and fair play, or exploitation and greed, depending on, whatever, however you like to see things. And like I said, we're going to break up. This country's going to get divorced. Red states, blue states. A house divided cannot stand. And you know who said that? Kris Jenner. That's correct. And we're going to break up because people keep trying to tell each other what to do. That's our whole thing. I want people to act this way. I want people to act that way. But the whole point of the Constitution is nobody gets to tell each other what to do. We don't get along. We don't agree on anything, but everybody loves the Constitution. I mean, soccer moms and strippers both talk about it. Cops and criminals, the Tea Party and the ACLU, everybody believes in the Constitution. Yeah, Declaration of Independence never really took off the way people thought it would. Even though that was important too, that was like our divorce papers from England. That was when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary. It's not you, England, it's us, but we have to walk away. But the Constitution, everybody here knows it. We all know what it says. Nobody had to read it. You can't, 4 pages, like I said, you don't have this kind of time, but, everybody knows what it says because you can quote it when your friends get pulled over outside a bar. You have the friend that's a lawyer. Don't worry, they can't touch you if you're within 50 feet of a U.S. mailbox. That's a federal offense. That's the thing about the Constitution. It's the only document, the drunker you get, the better you understand what it says. And that's because it was written by the Founding Fathers. Our Constitution was written during a convention, which is a 4-month bar crawl they had in Philadelphia in like 1787. That's why our national character, our personality as a country, is kind of a bar personality. People looked at us like the shining light on the beacon, like fun. They're having fun. The bar's open. We were a friendly country, a generous country. We could be a little pushy sometimes, though. Not read the room, Just like try democracy. Give it a try. The guy won't even give it a sip, It's like, it won't work over here. Trust me, it'll work in Iraq. Here, try it, We're a flirtatious country. We're like, come on over to our place after it closes. Everybody, you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses, don't worry. Then wake up the next day, Jesus Christ, what are all these people doing in my house? How am I gonna feed everybody? Who's out on my couch? I can't cook breakfast for everybody. We're the world's police. Whenever there's trouble, the whole world still comes to us. America, 2 tribes in the Middle East are about to go to war. We're like, oh, ho, break it up, guys. Seriously, truce. Here's $20. Buy them both a drink. No more fight, right? They're like, okay. The minute we walk away, they're like, every time we fight, they give us $20. I don't know. You want to stop? We borrow money that we need and then lend the money that we just borrowed. Only drunks do shit like this. Do you understand that? We never know how much we have on us. We're always like, hold on. I had trillions of dollars a couple of years ago. I know. A couple of wars, a few bailouts. I can't be that broke, We were the country everybody just looked to because we were always happy, America. And now we're unhappy. Like I said, we're about to break up. It used to be Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Now it looks like a scene from Reservoir Dogs. And we're unhappy for a couple of reasons. One is we got to know each other because none of the states knew each other. We didn't know each other. Nobody knew. Arizona and New York didn't know each other. You didn't ever see each other, but the internet got invented. And so they're like, oh my God, that states like that? I didn't realize that. And the other thing was we went broke. And when you're broke, nothing's that cute anymore, And why'd we go broke? We went broke because we're trying to make everybody happy. That's the American dream. Everybody, no matter who you are, you just keep going. Rich is rich, more rich than anybody. Middle class, richest middle class. Make sure they come. Poor, even poor. Richest poor people. Everybody gets a flat screen, gets a cell phone. Immigrants, everybody come on over. Come on over, everybody. Illegal. You come over too, don't worry, we're not looking. Some people don't want to come over. Foreign aid, send over money for the people who don't want to come over too. You know. And we went broke trying to make everybody happy. And where is it written in our Constitution that we're supposed to go broke trying to make everybody happy? In the preamble. Actually, that's what the preamble says. The preamble says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, because perfect is fine for other countries, I respect that. More perfect is better for this country. And more perfect is very expensive, you know. Plastic surgery, more perfect, you know. Establish justice, that laws, lawyers, lawsuits, you know, ensure domestic tranquility. You know how much money it costs to keep 300 million people tranquil every year? You need jobs, you need, you know, gadgets for everybody, food, antidepressants, tranquilizers. And provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. Defense and welfare, there's 50% of the budget right there every year. You know, that's the right and left right there, defense, welfare. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, because every generation is supposed to do better than the next, or somehow we failed. That was a sustainable idea somebody came up with. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America, you know. Now, if that's not a drunken, delusional promise, I don't know, you know. That's one of those things where the next day you're supposed to wake up and go, listen, I said a lot of shit I didn't mean last night. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's supposed to be, you know. But not these founding fathers, not these FFFs. They said, we can do it. They're so brilliant. Today, the country's gridlocked, and people still don't critique them. They still say they're brilliant. Even people that hate the founding fathers love the Constitution. The founding fathers, to this day, it's foolproof. You're like, hey, the country's gridlocked. It's not working. They're like, right, that's good. That means it's working. It's not working. That's how it's not supposed to work. That's how it works. It's not working. Really, it's not supposed to not work this well because you did a pretty good job, you know. That's why this country got formed, because these guys knew they were brilliant. The geniuses knew they were geniuses. Everybody else, all the other colonies, couldn't break away from England, never mind physically, psychologically, because they thought England was superior. These guys didn't think that. They came in like they're quoting Cicero, you know what I mean? Plato, they come in, you know, they're like, yeah, I talked to the governor of my colony. He doesn't even know who Montesquieu is. I mean, this guy's an idiot. He never heard of David Hume. Hey, did you read that John Locke piece in Poor Richard's Almanac? Yeah, it was pretty good, you know. They were like brilliant guys. You had 8 geniuses, then you had 23 badass war veterans, so they had that natural cocky, you know, they're coming in all smoking like, yeah, I saw Bunker Hill, I heard about that all fucking, we had them kid, Bunker Hill, they didn't know what the fuck, you know, the Massachusetts contingent, like, yeah, fucking kid. South Carolina's like, yeah, we took them down, they didn't know, they're coming in red coats, I mean, it was like shooting fish in a barrel, I swear to God, you know. They got the war stories, they're smoking, and then you had like James Madison. He was the whole guy that set it up, because a lot of people weren't there, by the way. Adams, Jefferson, no accident. I'm sure Madison's sick of hearing their names. He's just as much of a genius as them. So they happen to be out of the country when he decides to hold the convention. Basically, he's just sick of hearing. It's like George Harrison, you know, at a certain point, I'm sure he's like, you know, he's sick of hearing about Paul and John. Here comes the sun. That's the convention for him was Here Comes the Sun. It was the Bangladesh concert. And so you got Madison, who's like the super nerd of all time. He puts the whole thing together. He knows he's got to get like a popular guy, gets George Washington, because everybody loves George Washington. He's like the badass of the country. Everybody just wants to meet him. He brings him in. The whole country just loves George Washington for some reason. And then Ben Franklin, who was in Philly. He's like the godfather of the whole convention. You know, he gets up and gives a big opening speech. I'd like to welcome our friends from as far away as New Hampshire and good people of Georgia. How did we ever let it get this far? I don't know. But, yeah, Madison gives the opening speech. It's basically reading everybody the riot act about how the country's about to fall apart. He goes, you want to be England again? Because the only thing they had in common was like England shit. You know, everybody fought the war separately. Like There was like 8 different people. So the only thing in common was I heard Cornwallis got sent to India. Hey, karma, man. See, you act like an asshole. You know. And then Madison's like, we're going to be England again if we keep it up. Our country's falling apart. We were like, the Soviet states breaking up. Bosnia, when it broke, everybody's attacking each other. Same problems we have now, by the way. Just all, we held it off for this long. And he's like, you want to be England? Everyone's like, no, yeah. New York, you'll be Holland again. You forgot what that was like. You wear wooden shoes, live in a windmill, You walk out your front door every day, you get sucker punched by your own home, Live in Holland. And, so right away, there's problems. Nobody wanted to show up, by the way, just like now. We need another constitutional convention, but people are too busy. We're going to have like 8 Comic-Cons every year. But we don't have to, We can't organize a constitutional convention. Massachusetts came with their shit attitude because they thought they invented the country. They're like, yeah, Plymouth Rock kid, don't thank me now, Where's George? I want to meet George Washington. New York and Philly kind of knew each other from, Valley Forge, I remember. Cold, this guy. My balls are like cobblestones. That's how cold it was this day. And then the South, and there was already a problem, North and South. South came, there were 2 Souths. There's the gentleman South, Virginia, which is George Mason, Madison. They're like the erudite. And then it was the dirty South. The rest of the South, the hardcore South. You didn't even talk to them. If you wanted to say something to them, you talked to Virginia, and they would pass the message along to the rest of the South. It was like Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy, If you want to book Larry the Cable Guy, you talk to Jeff Foxworthy, Larry just shows up. He doesn't talk to you. And the South came with the attitude like, we're safe for one drink. If I don't like what I'm hearing, I'm getting the hell out of it, So Madison basically reads the problem, just like today, all the same problems. Immigration, naturalization was a big issue. Debt was a big issue. States versus federal rights, all these big issues, Goes down the list. They're all like, all right, listen to this guy, And then he's like, I'm done. Anybody, did I forget something? One guy goes, well, what about slavery? And the whole room got just like this room got. Everybody's like, oh, geez, he's going to go there? What the fuck? North went in there. They all said, we're getting rid of slavery. It's inhumane. Ben Franklin, once again, slavery will destroy us in the years to come. I believed that then, and I believe it today. It's not like shipbuilding or rum or even molasses, which is something most people seem to want nowadays. So they told the South, like, we're getting rid of slavery. The South's like, okay, we're taking tobacco. We'll see you later. They're like, whoa, come on. It's inhumane. Yeah, and you have indentured servants, but don't worry about it. You're like, wait. And they basically said, okay, look, no importing of slaves after 1803, whatever it was. Basically, the compromise. Nobody ever said a compromise was fair. You know what I mean? The first sellout, they call it the original sin of the Constitution. And thank God, it doesn't affect black and white relations today. But back then, it was a big deal. And it still resonates in everybody in the United States, black and white. Black people still don't trust the system. White people still have white guilt from that day. Black people still don't trust the system. I go to the train station, the black guy, is the train coming? Supposed to, We'll see what happens. What do you think the whole black community and the police, all that tension goes because the police are the system, the nation of laws. They're the ones that go in. Black people are what? First of all, who thought that plan wouldn't work? You had the black community festering, raising in the sun, looking at the dream deferred, fuming for hundreds of years over the system, but they can't really see, and it's not tangible, but they know they don't like the system. And then we're saying to a 23-year-old white kid, listen, we're going to give you a gun and a souped-up car. Go in there and start telling them what to do, all right? They're like, are they going to get pissed? No, I don't think so. Just kind of tell them you represent the system, and just say, can I see your hands? Who lives around here? Open that car. Shit like that. See what happens. But everybody always says we need a racial conversation, but there's not a racial conversation. People just go racist, and everyone's like, oh, yeah. Nobody talks, in detail. The problem is people just say well-intentioned. There's a lot of undercurrent on both sides that don't get discussed. You need to have a real racial show every week on TV, and you have people disgruntled, Not just people well-intentioned. I'm talking about a white guy that grew up in Baltimore, a black guy that grew up in Idaho. They might have some things to say about the other race, but they're not very flattering. And you have the hosts could be people from the other race that are trusted by the opposite race. Oprah, obviously, for the white people, And for the black people, I don't know. I would have said Robin Thicke last year, but I don't know what happened to him. He fell apart. Macklemore, Iggy Azalea, I don't know. It's not, they get picked up. And a lot of people say, why even listen to the Constitution? It's obviously garbage. These guys wrote it. They were slave owners. And yeah, but sometimes you just have to look at the writing and take that and not look at the person that did the writing. It's like Phil Spector, Yeah, he's a murderer, but Be My Baby was a pretty good song. And anyway, the original sin of the Constitution, the second thing was the class system. Article 1, legislative. They said, we're going to get rid of the class system because England, there was only 2 classes. It was, royalty and relatives of royalty. There was no middle class. That was it. We invented the middle class. James Madison basically invented the middle class. But they admitted, the founding fathers, they said, look, we're going to make a Senate is going to be for the rich people. And to this day, that's how it falls out. Rich people get to say, this is unacceptable. I'm going to call my senator. The middle class people are like, this is bullshit. I'm going to email my congressman's assistant. And poor people go, this is fucked up. I'm going to yell at the TV and see what happens. And they said, we're going to set it up for the people. Basically, all based on the bar, like I said, because they're at the bar and they're kind of looking, and the waiters at the bar, they said, we'll be the waiters. We'll be like the waiters. The people will be like the customers. We come up to them. What do you want? Whatever you want. The customer is always right. The people, House of Representatives, we represent you. You are just us. We're going to get you whatever you want. You still have to pay, so you're paying taxes, but it's you that's really, it's like going to a Springsteen concert. You go to see Springsteen, the whole night it's like the working man, the working man. But meanwhile, he's not giving away those seats. You still have to pay to see Bruce Springsteen, And the working man thing is kind of phony because, first of all, Bruce, if you really give a shit about the working man, you're not going to do a 4.5-hour concert on a Tuesday night. The working man's got to get up the next day. Bruce is sleeping in. Some exhausted iron worker burns his fingers off because Bruce wanted to do a 37-minute Rosalita at 11:05. Yeah. Then you had Article 2 was president. They said this was going to be based on reflection and choice rather than accident and force. That's what Madison said. You got to pick your leader. The king, it didn't matter. You got to pick. We pick our president based on, do you like this personality? Invented the public personality. The king, it didn't matter. Nobody was like, I don't like this king's personality. People were like, so what? He's the second son of the House of Essex of the Duke of York, you goddamn idiot. A good point. I didn't think it through, I guess. Yeah, I guess not. Once again, they're in a convention drinking, so it's based on the guy you kind of put in charge. They're not in charge, but they're the person that kind of tells you what the mood of the bar is. You always have the one friend that you kind of have that just lets you know what's going on the whole night. He's sort of a leader personality, but they're not in charge of you, but they tell you, look, they get to a point, okay, you watch our money, the Department of Treasury, you watch the door, they get to tell the bouncers, make sure nobody screws around. They have the power, they'll tell you, like, look, here's what's happening now. In a few minutes, we got to be careful. George is about to get in a fight. Delaware's throwing up. South Carolina's breaking up with their boyfriend. North Carolina, they're crying in the corner. We might go across the street. We're just not sure what's going on yet, And they have veto power, veto. When legislators are like, we want to do shots. No more shots, guys. We got to get up tomorrow. Legislators like, it's my money, I know, but still, we got to talk, you always have the power, separation of powers, And once again, every other country, you didn't get to choose. It was accident and force. Whoever the bar leader was could be that dickhead. Him and his friends just run the whole bar. He's kind of related to the owner. He sets a toxic bar. He makes you throw in for you. He's like, come on, we're getting Coke. Like, I don't do Coke. Everybody throws in, though. This guy doesn't do Coke. Bullshit, come on. He ends up, oh, sorry, I accidentally dropped in the toilet there. Yeah, sure, he did all the Coke himself. One of these guys. That's how the other countries were, you know? And judicial was like the bartender, based on the bartender at the convention probably, because they're going, hey, settle an argument for us, bartender. Because that's who used to have to settle arguments. Before Google, you had to use the bartender, right? And that's what our judicial is, basically the bartender of the United States. They're there to tell you the original owner's intent. No. Gay marriage, equal protection, no. No school prayer, no. You're allowed to bring whatever. And and they were the guy that keeps the other two in control. It's a power balance. So when, executives like, hey, just give me a little more executive power over there. It's like, oh, come on, you've had enough. No more, no overreach. And the legislators like, hey, I just want to pour something for my base. No, come on. You're cut off. That's enough right now, Then Article 4 is just the franchise. We have this idea, we're going to go to each state, make each state like us. Each state had the same thing. You give him a psycho, alpha male, crazy guy, but he knew how to develop jobs. He sends, resources, taxes back. You send him immigrants and a fort because the local coffee shop, if you're Starbucks, is going to be a problem, The local tribes, the fort was just basically a guy with a baseball bat warming up. He's not hitting them yet, but, like, what's his problem? What's he going to do, And I realize I have a bad swing. It's been like that my whole life. And so basically, that was the franchise guy. He sends back taxes, and if things work out, we're going to give you a star on the flag. It was a big deal in those days, get a star. 18, you know what I mean? It means you can fuck with anybody, and they can't fuck with you. If I can quote Goodfellas for the first, but not the last time. Article 5 is just basically saying whatever we decide, we still have to leave room in case later they want to make amendments, they want to ratify, because, bars change. They might want to put a karaoke machine in here someday. We don't know. Styles change. A pool table, we can't tell them what to do completely. Article 6, if you trade with other countries, everybody had to be on the same page. It's like, if it was a bar, you'd say, look, we tell them no T-shirts, no sneakers. You got to say the same thing on Wednesday that we say on Tuesday. And Article 7, just basically, look, it's going to be, sign it, cut the ribbon, open for business, right? So they open for business, freedom of speech. That was the Bill of Rights was the big thing. Freedom of speech, because nobody had freedom of speech in the world. No, you can boo the president. Boo! Nobody says anything. You could never boo the king. Nobody booed the king. The king's coming by, boo. 6 archers be like, I got him, don't worry, I got this son of a bitch. This guy's suicidal, Yeah, you could say whatever, because the founding fathers, the brilliant ones were brilliant. They're like every other country, they're like, don't let the people speak. Who knows what'll happen? That's how revolutions happen. That's how uprisings happen. These founding fathers were like, let them speak, go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead, man, whatever you want. The guy's like, okay, we think it's bullshit what's going on. Okay, duly noted, thank you very much. See, wasn't it interesting what he just said? See, I told you they got nothing. Don't worry about it, Because just because you can speak doesn't mean you can change anything. And you can speak in this. I think we've proven nothing, if not that everybody can say whatever they want. You can even yell fire in a crowded movie theater and some lawyer will take the case. But that doesn't mean we speak freely. You can get fired from your job. You can get, castigated, censored, boycotted, shunned by your community. People go, but the government doesn't do it. No, but the tyranny of the mob does it. Depending on who you are and what you say and what's considered offensive in different time periods, different things are offensive. If I was up here 60 years ago, every ethnic joke, people like, ha ha, hilarious. But if I cursed once, every guy would be waiting for me outside because the wife was there and tried to drop me with a straight right hand, which is all anyone threw in those days, the straight right. Because you cursed in front of the little woman. But now cursing, everybody curse. Little kids curse. Little kids, you go to Chuck E. Cheese, the kid's like, it's fucking Chuck E. Cheese. He's telling the other kids, but it's my birthday. It's just a pizza. Am I right or wrong? Yeah, you said it. Fucking But if you even mention ethnicity, people feel a little bit, your stomach feels tense. If you even mention someone's ethnicity, everyone's like, wow. If I told you a true story, this Mexican guy came up to me, whoa. Why does this guy have to be Mexican in your true story? I don't understand. You have to speak in the most idealized, pasteurized, homogenized, colorblind at all. You know, you feel, if you notice, you're like, this guy comes up to me, could have been Mexican, I don't know, I don't care. I shouldn't have been a Central American, Hispanic, Latino. It was a man, all right? Wait a minute. I was sexist. I don't know if it was a man. Could have been a woman, it could have been LGBT, I don't know. I mean, it was a life form came up to me. You know what? Hold on. I'd like to start the story by apologizing for, obviously, I'm coming from a place of Western, entitled, unconscious, paternalistic fear of the other, and, you know, non-heteronormative, gender-specific. I'd like to start by saying that this apology has been a learning experience for me and a teachable moment, and I think I'm going to do some soul searching, and hopefully, down the line, I can start a nonprofit for other people that are telling stories, you know. And sure, you applaud, but half the country, when you tell that apology, groveling, they're like, now you're starting to understand. You're really starting to understand how to feel and think and talk. That's right, that's very good. You know, that's how people, you know, words. We're offended by words in this country, which means we're success. We're at total success. When you're offended by language, that means you're success. A lot of other countries, it still comes down to people coming in. I can't take the intolerance anymore, they tell us. What happened? The other religion came and burned down my village. I know what you mean. I heard some inflammatory rhetoric recently. And they're like, but what does it mean, inflammatory rhetoric? That means like flames, like what they literally did to your village. That's what they figuratively did to my sense of, it was oppressive speech, if you know what I'm trying to say by that. It was kind of supremacist, oppressive by its very nature. It's hard to explain. Words hurt. Words are loaded. Words are triggers in our society. You know, the Second Amendment and the First Amendment overlapping at all times. And, of course, you know, we can blame the press. First of all, the press is not even the press anymore. The press is now all of us. Anybody has any kind of a computer or a phone, you're actually the press. How do you think the journalists feel at this point? You can win 6 Pulitzers, cover 8 wars, but some blogger gets more hits on you that week, and they're tagged, they're it, and you're out. That's it. And the press was locked out of the convention, by the way. They were locked out. The Founding Fathers, freedom of the press, starting in a couple of months when we're done. They shut the windows and locked them out of the whole thing, you know? Because the press, and now the press, obviously there's 2 sides, and that's it. You have to see the country one way or the other. There's no middle ground. There's nobody in the middle. You have to see this country as either it's in danger of becoming a right-wing, Islamophobic, homophobic, xenophobic, nothing to fear but phobia itself taking over, or it's a left-wing socialist, terrorist, anarchist about to take over. There's nobody in the middle. I mean, there's people in the middle like myself, but nobody, there's no party if you're like me, pro-gun, pro-choice, pro-death penalty, pro-gay marriage, all those things, what do they add up to? Anti-overcrowding. Thank you, but nowadays, it's only the most fervent true believers and the fastest typists that run this country, you know. And the news is basically just people, the instigator friend. They just try to get you to see what the other side said about a story. That's all the news. You know, your instigator friend is like, you know what they said about you? I shouldn't have brought it up. You're going to get mad. You're like, now you brought it up. Now I don't want to tell you. You know, tell me, you know. That's what the news is. They're like cable. Old cable is like, you know what they said about that story? The other side, wait till you hear this. You're going to get pissed. You're like, what? Like, I'll tell you after the commercial. Just hang out for a second. Yeah. And that's all our news is. What the other side said about a story. It's never the story. That's irrelevant, whatever the story was. It's what the other side said. It's news once removed. There's no real news. There's real news on the scroll underneath. Peruvian earthquake, thousands dead. Nigerian massacre, hundreds fit. Bangladeshi factory fire. And our journalists are going, do you think Chris Christie is too fat to run for president? Be honest. Is it fat shaming, in fact? Do you think that? You're sitting there watching a former Secretary of State argue with a lap band surgeon, you forgot why. You're like, why am I watching this again? But we all swear by it, and people just want to convince other people. That's the whole thing. Our country keeps trying. That's why we're going to break up, because people are like, you've got to change. You've got to say. No, the whole country is based on the fact you don't have to say. Everybody's going to have their opinion, but everybody's still trying to force everybody to have another opinion. And it's like religious fervor. The Sunnis and Shiites. That's how I feel about the extreme political parties in our country, left and right, Sunnis and Shiites, just trying to get you. Just go to this website. You understand? Just look at this website. Politics is a new religion. If it's not the new religion, why are all the political shows on Sunday morning? That's my question. Now, because guess what? Sunday was for church. People came to this country to go to church. They came over here because they're like, I heard you go to church there. Nobody busts your balls, you know. Other countries, they'd let you in, but they're like, oh, what's that around your neck before we let you in? Is that a cross or is that a fish? You're like, it's a star. All right, come here on this line. Kill me. You know. Over here, you go to church, and people loved church back in those days because life was so shit. Church was actually excitement. Church was the only entertainment there was. It was like, that was the thing. With comedy, music, it was everything, therapy, because the world stunk. Before electricity, you just work all day pulling tree roots, raking, you know, hoeing, and then once a week, you know, that night you'd be sitting in your bed, just no electricity, just sitting on the bed waiting in the dark for the next day to start. But then on Sunday, you go into this place, it's got music, it's got nice stained glass, smells like incense. Guy's up there he can read, he's throwing snakes around the room, holy shit. Your neighbors are rolling around, speaking in tongues. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And it was therapy for people, because that was therapy, you know, because the guy'd make you, frontier life was hard. He's like, hard week, right? Yeah. I heard you had a natural disaster over at your place. Yeah. Heard you lost 2 relatives. Yeah. You guys had an animal attack, right? Yeah. Yeah, well, how about this guy? He had to live in a whale for 3 days, all right? That was a little worse, don't you think? Like, all right, that's true, yeah. I would rather do that than live in a whale, I guess, for 3 days, or, you know, pack of lions. I have to stay with them for 6 months, like Daniel, whatever. And, yeah, it's still big. Down south, the Midwest, because, you know, farm, they still have the mega churches. They sell out all the time. Giant mega churches, black and white preachers, and the black and white preachers have their own different styles. Once again, I apologize in advance for even thinking this, but Creflo, Dollar, T.D. Jakes, they paraphrase the Bible, the black preachers. They're like, Lazarus goes, are you crazy? And people go, where does it say that? Are you crazy? And they say, the white preachers, like, you know, they're like football coaches, you know, SEC football coaches. Like, yeah, you all think Satan's out of this thing. Satan ain't out of this thing, I'll tell you right now. Satan's having a rebuilding season. That's what's going on with Satan. And it's still, look, freedom of worship, we still respect it. Even if you don't believe in religion, you respect it to the point where they built a mosque 2 blocks from ground zero. People didn't like it, but nobody said it wasn't constitutional. And I bring it up because it's also the bottom floor of the building that I live in right now. I swear to God, I've been there the entire time. And half my building is like, oh, what if there's an explosion? What if there's a sleeper cell? What are the odds? 2 to 1? I don't know. No, I'm kidding. But people say, you know, we know you're joking, but you shouldn't joke like that because, you know, the real Islamophobes, we get the joke because we're smart. But what about the psycho in the militia in the middle of the country that doesn't get it? So now I have to write my act trying to please some guy with a Nazi flag in his compound in the middle of Idaho. Hey, if he doesn't get the joke, it's not good. I have to make sure he understands every joke I say. It's the opposite of what I was planning when I wrote comedy. Sorry. That's what you have to appeal to in your act. And but the First Amendment, everybody agrees with. Nobody disagrees. We all kind of agree, the whole country. Second Amendment, that's where we're going to break up. That's the divorce papers, irreconcilable differences when we file for divorce as a country. And the Founding Fathers all owned guns, obviously, different time. 86% of the country was bears until 1796. You know. Yeah, guns and animals just want, you know what I mean? And And look, I mean, hunting, you can't say it's more humane the way we kill cattle. If you eat meat, you can't say hunters are worse than tricking cattle into a chute the way we just lead them down a chute like, hey, come here, It's like De Niro getting Lorraine Bracco into the dress shop and, and you can see the cattle have that same look in their eyes, like, I'll come back later, Jimmy, I gotta get my mother. But they can't move, they're penned in, But hunters won't compromise either. Like, they say, well, deer hunting, we love, nobody eats goddamn deer. Nobody even wears deer. It's not the 70s. Chris Christopherson, But they go, but deer hunting's a sport. First of all, come on. Nothing's a sport if one team doesn't even know they're playing. All right. It's like somebody throwing a football in the back of your neck. Let's have a catch. Oh, all right. We should do it like the Old West. The Old West had it down because they would hire, nobody accidentally got shot because they used experts. You'd bring the expert in. The bad guys come into town, starting trouble. You'd get an expert gunslinger, call him in, bring him in. What's good? What's the problem? These guys came out of town. They're starting shit. They're talking dirty to the ladies. They went in the bar. They're throwing drinks at people. Whatever. He's like, you want me to run them out of town? No, we want you to murder them. We want you to murder them on our main street at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. While we watch, you know what I mean? Maybe that's the every community gets a gunslinger, somebody who's really good. There's home invasions going on. You hire the guy, put him in the lazy boy, $80 a night, whatever it is, $140. You put a picture of the family on the desk right there. Tell them, look, if anyone comes through that door, it's not in that picture, blow their brains out for us, But, once again, we can't, there's no compromise. And the NRA on the other side, this guy's not. First of all, the guy that runs the NRA, Wayne LaPierre, if you run an organization where all you do is laws and guns, that's your whole job, law and guns, I want everything you say to be the kind of thing that nobody else could have thought of, because your job all day is guns, laws, Constitution. So everything that comes out of your mouth when you're defending yourself should be something like, oh, you know what, nobody else could have, that was pretty nuanced, that's interesting. You got to give that credence. This guy comes out after Sandy Hook. 5 days, he goes, we want to make a statement, I want to wait a couple of days. He came out and he goes, we figured out how to stop these tragedies from occurring. I was like, all right, watch this, because I believe in guns. He's like, we give the teachers guns. Wow, you could have gave me 30 guesses, sir, as to where you were going to go. I would not have said he's going to double down right now, this guy. And then he goes, all right, well, we'll give sentries in front of the schools. Yeah, that's good feng shui. Put sentries in front of the school. Like guard towers. And first of all, teachers guns, that's what you come. First of all, give teachers guns. It'll teach them a lesson, I promise you. Give teachers guns, 3 months. Guns change the dynamic of every situation. You give teachers guns, in 3 months, these teachers are going to be walking around these classrooms. Where's your homework, money? The kid's like, I didn't do it. This motherfucker over here. Oh. Somebody wants to die up in here today. Yeah, Second Amendment's going to break us up. That's going to break up the country. Second Amendment. 3 through 10, we all agree with, because those are our rights. Those are the founding fathers just telling street stories from when the British ran the... Because they were kind of street guy, politician, soldier, statesman, but street... when the British ran the country, that was, so they're like, yo, put in no soldiers quartered, because my wife and that lieutenant, that English lieutenant during the French and Indian War, it was like a weird vibe, They're like, probable cause, put in probable cause. They used to throw me against the wall. Why, because I got a tri-corner hat? I got a Thomas Paine pamphlet in my back pocket, I'm guilty? He's like, you were yelling British, you're coming. That's Paul Revere, I don't look like Paul Revere to you? We all look the same. And they're like, speedy trial, they had me in the stockades for like 2 weeks. Every time I fall asleep, some kids are kicking my head and knocking my wig off. I wake up, they drew 2 cocks next to my hands, looking at whacking people off. And they probably did that back in the day. Who knows? But back in the day. And the rest of it was just all the commerce. The commerce was what made our country, the business. This is going to be a business. We're setting it up a bit. And the hook was the patents, private property. Nobody ever did that. Before that, if you had an invention, you'd bring it to your local lord. Oh, let me see that. That's a good idea. I'll bring it. Yeah, give it. And you're like, what the hell? Get out of here. He brings it to the Duke. Duke is like, that's a great idea, you fucking asshole. Duke brings it to the king. King's like, hey, I invented this wheat thresher. Everybody's like, oh, the king's the greatest. How do you come up with it? Patents and private property. You didn't have to be royalty. In fact, you couldn't be royalty to get rich. That was the hook. Every other country, you had to be related to the king. Anybody you saw with money, you're like, where'd you get rich? I'm the king's second cousin, okay? Yes. But I also worked. Yeah, sure you did, Over here, you have to prove you're not royalty. You can't be genteel and rich. We hate that. Every criminal on TV is like this kind of, British accent, rich. You have to prove you're just the opposite. That's why all our millionaires act like that Shark Tank. Donald Trump's like, look, I don't give a shit. You want to make a buck? Let's make a fucking... Because he's like subconsciously hitting you with like, I'm not royalty. You can see the way I'm behaving. Royalty doesn't act like this. I'm fucking... That was it. You just had to have an idea. And as long as you had an idea, nature versus commerce. That was the whole country. Nature was there. Commerce came in. And most people didn't think that way. You had to have that mindset. You didn't have to be smart. Just that business mentality. Everybody else would pass a bunch of apples in the field, right? Oh, apples, great. Some guy put up a fence. What's going on? Now it's called an orchard and no longer apples. Now you pay. It's Nathaniel's Orchard. You understand? Pay. Just put your name on it. It was yours. Johnson City, Double R Ranch, animals. They're fucking pressing their asses with their name, Before, people would see vegetables and go, oh, God's bounteous gift. He gave us all these vegetables. Some guy puts up a fence up. Next day, he's like, God left the business, guys. Now it's Clarence Birdseye's bounteous gift. You understand that? They're like, but how do I eat? He goes, you climb over the fence. You become an employee. Pick the vegetables, hand them to me. I'll hand you some money. Go to the other side of the fence. You become a customer. You hand me back some of the money, and I hand you back some of the vegetables. He just made himself the middleman between nature and people, And it started to work. Not everybody got rich, but 1 in 5 people, they said, have been rich in this country. Of this generation, enough people got rich, it was like a good Vegas vibe where people... And you knew you didn't have to be royalty. You didn't have to be smart. People would go back to the old country, buy the biggest house in the village in Romania. Where was he? America. And he got rich? Yeah. Wasn't he the dumb prick that could barely function in our shitty village, by the way? You're like, yeah, he was. Well, my kid's kind of an asshole. I'm going to send him over there. Maybe he can do something. It gave you hope for the whole family. You know what I mean? It all went back to Article 4. They decided in Article 4, Northwest Ordinance. That was what they decided, which is going to mow 3 states. The local tribes are going to pay. They lied to the early immigrants to get them to states nobody wanted to go to. The Swedes and Germans. We want to go someplace warm. Yeah, Minnesota. Go over there. It's very nice. By October, they're like, I think they lied to us. It's going to get chilly over here, But it starts to do. But you didn't have to live. Every other place, your class was your class for life. Your name imprisoned you. Some guy be in another country. I'd like to be a lawyer. What's your name? Williamson. Williamson, right? You're Williamson? The cobbler. Yeah, here's my shoe, you stupid ass. Get over there. Fix my shoe. The ball's on him. What do you want? I want to be a doctor. What's your name? Johnson. Yeah, blacksmith John. Right? Here's my fucking horse's shoe, you idiot. Over here, your name doesn't know. That's why the Kardashians is the perfect American story. They're the story of America going west and fulfilling their dream. Because first of all, you have to understand something. Kardashians, their name did not hold them back. Name got out there in the 90s, the father, Robert Kardashian, OJ's lawyer. That's the first time anyone heard the name Kardashian. Then he was the cover-up guy in the OJ case. He hid the murder weapon for OJ. People forget. He's the guy that went to the house, left, and suddenly... So he dies. A few years later, daughter grows up, makes a sex tape. So any other culture in the history of the world would be like, mother would call the family together. We've had a couple of dishonorable incidences. Our name is being sullied. We need to restore our crest, our name. What we do is we lay low for a couple of generations. And, hopefully someday... Kris Jenner's American. She understands. She's like, calls the family together. Guys, we had a murder. We had a cover-up. We had a sex tape. This is our shot. Do you understand? This is our chance. Everybody take a Sharpie, start putting your name on anything you see. Kim's supposed to be so ditzy, she called on right away. Mommy, what about shoes? Yes, Kim, exactly. What about my jeans? Yes, Kim. The other kids start catching. My bag, Chloe, perfect. What about my earrings? Courtney, yes, exactly. Even the poor son called on after a couple of years. He came out one day, socks. They're like, that's very good, Rob. How'd you think of that? I was looking at my shoes. All right, we don't need to know. But that's gives you hope, you know? That's how the country got formed, by that kind of thinking. Put your name on it. And nature versus commerce. Nature suffers. If you don't think that's the story of America, look what subconsciously her and Kanye named their kid, Northwest. They named the kid after the ordinance. I'm telling you right now. Well, so the whole country just keeps rolling over, you know, just rolling over the state. People are coming over. Everybody's talking, America's the greatest. I heard this place. We're like the hot place. Everybody was talking about us, even if they didn't come over. Maybe my grandkids could get over there. It sounds like fun. They're doing something. You know, enough people got money. A lot of people didn't, but enough people did where people were like, this could really be something. By the mid-20th century, we start feeling bad for all our sins of the past. We're like, we're so great to the immigrants. Best place ever for immigrants. What about all the people that started with us? Trying to make up Civil Rights Act, Native American tribes, no taxes, give them casino. Lyndon Johnson said in 1965, they go, what are you going to do now? He goes, we're going to end poverty in America, no more poverty. And nobody laughed. Everybody's like, all right, we did everything else we said. I'm sure we could do that. The whole world believed we could do it. And I started going, suddenly in school, they started trying to make up for the teacher. Before that would be like, America, Thanksgiving, we let the Indians eat with us. We're the greatest. A year later, she's like, Thanksgiving, a day of genocide, and we're going to take down the turkeys and put decals of bloody tears on the school windows. We may have thrown the baby out with the bathwater, but it started going so well, we almost pulled it off. We almost pulled off a perfect society. 1966 for like 2 days, and a lot of people go, what about a place like Sweden? Sweden, you can't compare. That was 10,000 blonde people that grew up across the street from each other. This was, you know, this was 300 million, you're tired, you're poor, shitheads, bipolar, fucking, you know. Anybody, they come on in, oh, I worry about this guy, but, you know, as long as you were willing to drop dead of a heart attack from work at 38, as long as you had a strong back, we didn't give a damn, you know what I mean? Because that's all we care. Because if you do good, your kids will live indoors. We promise you that. Your grandkids might own a house. Your great-grandkids might own a business. Your great-great-grandkids might go to a college. That's all people get. You won't starve to death. That was our big thing. Because everywhere else, you could starve to death. There was pretty good odds, you know. Over here, there's like, they feed you good over there. They feed you great. The whole country's made of food. Get over here. You know? It's even set up like a 3-course meal. East Coast, you got the clams, the crabs for appetizer. Midwest, you got the steak and the potatoes. The West Coast, they got the fruit and the nuts for dessert. Maybe a little wine, you know, a little salad to cleanse your palate. You know, it was and we almost pulled off 4 pages written on a bar napkin in 1787 by them. Almost. What happened? You know, a lot of people will tell you different things. Too much corporate write-offs, too many benefits, too many entitlements, too many tax breaks. Everyone's got their story. It's probably a combination in some way. You know, maybe we just tried too hard. Maybe we just had our day. We were the hot bar. You know, you have your day. We had a couple of 100 years. The hot bar, lines around the block. You go to 26 Federal Plaza till 15 years ago. Lines around the block trying to get into the hot bar, the United States. And we had our system in the bar. Good food, good service, cash only, you know, dress code. Everybody wears a suit, you know. We all got along, like I said, no internet. So everybody kind of got, it was that time of night when it's a little loud and you're a little tipsy, the music's too loud, so you don't really know what the other people are saying. You're like, hey, you know, different states think they're talking to each other. You like art? Yeah, I love cars. You love cars too? Yeah. And then one day, somebody comes in with a credit card. Hey, what's that? It's credit. We're doing so well, we've actually got a system where a guy with a lot of cash lends money, so everybody, that works even better. But now you change the vibe of the bar, because now it's a bit of a gambling bar. There's a guy lending money. It's a bit of a Shylock system. And suddenly you got a gambling bar. A gambling bar, nobody cares about the food or the service. You care about money. And suddenly you're waiting tables. You're like, why am I waiting tables? Nobody cares about this. I want to be over there making money. So you're making money, but you're feeling anxious. Another guy comes in and he starts, saying, I got these anxiety medications, tranquilizers. And suddenly you have a drug and a gambling bar. In the drug and gambling bar, the vibe changes a lot. Everybody's vibe kind of changes, the entire bar. But you're still doing better than anybody else. And then one day somebody comes in with a 20, goes to our register, we open the register, there's no cash. And just then, the music goes off, the lights go on, we see each other the first time, internet's invented, the check gets thrown down, and we start arguing over the check. We're like, who the hell's gonna pay this goddamn check? You rich guys, we gotta charge you guys more for the drinks, you know what I mean? It's like, bullshit, it's you middle class guys, you're hogging up the guy. It's the poor guy, why am I buying his goddamn drink? And what about this? What about the old man at the bar why are you still paying for his drinks? He's like, oh, fuck you, I was the first one in this goddamn bar. And we're just standing there pointing at each other, basically a Mexican standoff, excuse the expression. And the worst part is the whole world is horrified by this, because even if they hate us, love us, jealous, they need us to be that thing. So they're as scared as we are, believe me. We're like the perfect couple that you just idealize, and then you go on a double date with them, and they're drunk and fighting the whole night. They're out in the parking lot, she's missing a heel, he's pissing his pants. Yeah, the rest of the world's driving home like, America should get some help. What the hell was that? We need therapy, We need an outside observer to tell us. I suggest Canada. Canada's the perfect example, because they're kind of mild. No, but they have that quiet kind of person. And they're us, but they're not us, because they're the same size as we are. They got here the same time we did. But you look at them, look at us, it's like two brothers that went different paths in life. They're like Emilio Estevez and we're like Charlie Sheen. Because Emilio Estevez still looks good. I'm sure he's got money in the bank. And he looks good. But nobody gives a shit. And then Charlie Sheen's on a collision course to something. But everybody's still like, hey, what's Charlie going to do today? Canada could sit us down and go, guys, you got to get it together, because we're bickering outside the bar, like, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf, Like, did you ever even want to be a republic, Martha? Oh, you only said that about states' rights to get me into your country, you son of a bitch. You've resented me since the Civil War. Oh, bullshit, you just give away everything. What we need is a staff meeting, We need basically a bar. We close the bar, have a staff meeting, sit down, get it all out. There's different philosophies. One is let rich guys cater to the upscale crowd, and maybe, they'll spend more and tips will trickle down. The other thing is get a bigger middle class crowd, charge less, but you have more mass, you know what I mean? And basically at this point, like I said, the fight is over the bill, because we woke up, when those lights went on, we realized we didn't know each other, the internet. And the red states are going, what's this bullshit? I didn't agree. Who put this surcharge for healthcare on this fucking thing, And the blue states are going, church and state is supposed to send separate checks. You always try to pull this shit, Kansas. So we need somebody like Canada to just go, guys, you're still the last best hope on this planet. You got to do something. Like, what do we do? Give yourselves a break. Realize you left England. That was your mother country. You just got separation anxiety you never dealt with. You were 11 years old when you got together. You were kids, you didn't know any better. Of course you don't get along at this point. I suggest you guys lock yourselves in a room, eat, drink, fight, work it all out. 4 months, Philadelphia, no press. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.